Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. This is The Gutters, my audio journal. And how are you? How are things? I hope you're healthy, happy, and enjoying the things that you enjoy. I, for one, had been enjoying my time. I was away from my home for a month. I've been back home now for just over a week. Returning from, like I said, a month away, when I went down to the Boise, Idaho area, and I quarantined all by my lonesome for 2 weeks, and then spent 2 weeks, 2 glorious weeks with my daughter and her family. And boy, that was something. That was a different experience for me. That's for sure. I don't think that I had spent that much time away from any one family member, let alone my wife, in forever, ever, maybe, probably ever. I've gone away for, about a week for certain trips, but never 2 weeks all by myself. There was always, I was around somebody at least, even if it was just a stranger. That was definitely a different experience for me. During the pandemic for this last year, I've been going to work because I'm a manager of my department, and there are certain physical items that we have to deal with there, and so I needed to be there to help process those things. I could have worked from home a certain amount of time, but it was just I had to be there at some points, so I may as well have just gone to work. And so I've been doing that for this last year. So I've been around people, unlike I'm sure many of you who have been shuttered away in your homes, maybe even all by yourselves for that entire time. And if that's the case, you have my sympathy, because I was going a bit crazy, a bit stir crazy, in those 2 weeks that I was all by my lonesome. I did keep myself busy those 2 weeks. I recorded and released 2 episodes in the main feed, 2 comic book related episodes. A January 2021 pull list review for comics that I read during the month of January, and then also my favorites of 2020 episode. So I released those in March while I was down there, and I was able to. And also I've been kept up with my 52 reviews. And I'm talking about the DC Comics series 52 from. What was it, 2004, 2005? I think it was 2000. Anyway, early 2000s. Anyway, so I've been every week I've been writing about my thoughts about each issue of 52, and now I think I just released, at the time of this recording, 52 week 14 has been put out on longboxreview.com. So if you're interested in those things, those 3 comic book related things, go check it out at the website. And besides that, I also I'm supposed to exercise. My doctor wants me to exercise every day. And while I've talked about this before on the Gutters and probably other episodes as well, but I've not been really consistent with that. I don't do it every day, and sometimes, like this last week where I've been home, I haven't. Well, even before that, and now I'm going backwards in time instead of forwards in time, like I was planning on. But anyway, I've not exercised in 3 weeks. but I was very, very proud of myself, because I did exercise every day. Well, except for the weekends. I take the weekends off. But I exercised every day those 2 weeks I was home, or at this place that we rented, an Airbnb house that we rented for that purpose. So yeah, Monday through Friday, those 2 weeks, I exercised every frickin' day. So I was very, very proud of myself for that. And I got to get back into it. That progress that I made, totally gone. So, and not to mention, when I spent those 2 weeks with my daughter and her family, I ate like a king. And I put on a few pounds. So, yeah. So I got to get back to that. But the week that I got back, what I usually do is, I should be exercising on top of this, but what I normally do when I feel like I've gained too many pounds is I try to cut back on the carbs, and then I also limit my intake. I have a food app that I use to count my calories, and so that helped. I nearly got back down to where I need to be in just a week. So obviously I didn't gain that much, but when you're my age, it's hard to take off those pounds. And so I got to be careful of that stuff. So anyway, like I said, spent 2 weeks with my daughter, which was fantastic because I had not seen her in person, been physically around her since September of last year, of 2020. And so, and she had, she gave birth to her son, my grandson, Hudson, in December. And, I saw them. I think I talked about this in the previous gutters, but we did a porch visit. I was outside, they were inside. So, I was in proximity, but I couldn't hug them. I couldn't hold them, which was very, very difficult for me. So when my daughter offered me the opportunity to come down for a couple weeks after quarantining, I said not yes, but hell yes. And so, I got to spend that time with her and the family. And it was, if you have kids, but if you have grandchildren, it's you know what I'm talking about. But just the depth of love you feel for this newborn person it just amazes me. The depth of feeling that you have for another human being, such as a kid or a grandkid. It amazes me. I wish I were a poet and I can express this more eloquently, but it was beautiful to be able to hold and feed and hang out and play with my grandson, as much as a 3-month-old, he just turned 4 months old actually, right after I left. Anyway, just a delight. I think one of my favorite things to do was to feed him his bottle, and he would just look up at me with those beautiful blue eyes, and it's just like I was his world in that moment. And it's like I said, I can't adequately express how that makes me feel as his grandfather. So, but I'm very much looking forward to as he grows up and I introduce him to comic books and geeky things. So hopefully he's open to that. But anyway, Hudson wasn't the only grandkid that I got to interact with. I got to play with 3.5-year-old Hadley. My beautiful blonde granddaughter. Boy, she was a bundle of energy, like 24/7. I've forgotten how much energy children have, and the endless supply of that energy that they have. So, but it was wonderful. We played all the time. She wanted to. She's so imaginative. She has this wonderful sense of play and wonder and joy that it was a joy to be around. So we played constantly. The last night that I was there, she wanted to have a dance party, and so I put on the song that she wanted to play, which were these dance mixes, I think, or remixes of Let It Go from the Frozen movie. And we danced to 3 different, actually, I think it was 4 different remixes of Let It Go for, I don't know, close to half an hour. nonstop. So that was a lot of fun. She wanted to, run outside and play all the time. And she referred to wanting to have a party, which meant basically dumping all of her toys and other stuff that she had in her playroom in a big pile. And we never really got to actually having the quote unquote party. It was always just preparation for the party, no matter how much I tried to prompt her to what should we do in this party? Or what are we going to do? Let's do something in the party. No, I have to do this kind of stuff. So kids. And it was really cute because a couple other things that she would do when we had meals, she would sit at the table, and my daughter has this placemat that Hadley uses, and Hadley has two placemats, and so she would always go when she was told to go get her placemat and go sit at the table. She would grab both placemats, and she would put one right next to each other, and I would sit next to her. She wanted me to sit next to her, and she wanted me to use her other placemat, which I thought was adorable. And then there are other times when she's doing preschool stuff, but they're doing it online. And so she would sit on the couch with these headphones on and use my daughter's iPad to access this online preschool videos. And Hadley she'd be sitting there doing this, and I'd be sitting there watching TV with my daughter, usually watching Nashville, which is not a show that I would normally seek out, but because my daughter wants to watch it, of course I'll watch it with her. And I kind of got into it. Surprisingly, there's some good music on the show. Anyway, but Hadley would inch closer to me, and eventually she would basically be laying on me, which I thought was great. I had so much fun with her. I can't even explain how much joy she brought to my existence during those 2 weeks. It's just beautiful. And then, my daughter and I and her husband, we would, in the evenings after the kids went to bed, we would sit and watch various shows. I'll talk about some of those later. But then inevitably, I think it was every night we did this for 2 weeks. We'd get on these discussion topics, a lot of them stemming from the material that we were watching at the time. But it was just, we had these wonderful conversations, and sometimes my daughter and I would run to do a grocery pickup, and we would just talk. And it was really cool. I love my daughter, Brittany, so much. And I just adore her, and having these adult conversations with her now, it's just, it was great. I would not trade those 2 weeks for anything. In fact, it's funny because it's ironic because I actually thought I did not need to spend 2 weeks there. I thought that might be too much. And then I got to the end of that first week, and it's like, this is not enough time. And indeed, when it came to the Sunday morning that I had to pack up and leave, it was extremely difficult for me to say goodbye. And in fact, they were outside waving goodbye, and as I started to pull away, with tears in my eyes, I heard Hadley yelling at me to come back and play with her, and it's just, yeah. Anyway, so I mentioned earlier that I ate like a king. My daughter cooked, her and her husband mostly, except for one meal, I think. They cooked. I cooked one of the meals for them one night. But they cooked these meals that they like, and some really good stuff. My daughter cooked this pineapple chicken curry that was, oh my God, so good. And when I would call my wife in the evenings after we've had these meals, I'm like, okay, I have this. We're gonna make this, and that happened like 3 or 4 times. Like, oh, Brittany made this thing, and we're gonna start making this. So yeah, this just pineapple chicken curry that I am craving right now as I think about it. It's so good. She also made me some barbecue ribs. Barbecue, or the ribs were cooked in her Instant Pot, and it was just like, oh, these are really good. I'm not a big barbecue ribs guy, but boy, that was really good. And then just finally, just because as I record this, it's almost lunchtime, and apparently I'm hungry, and this is just making me hungrier. So I need to stop talking about food. But she has this cookbook, Mongolian? No, not Mongolian. Marigold. Boy, I don't remember. Something table. Starts with an M. It's this woman and her husband who have a show, like a home improvement show. Wow. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, she has a cookbook, and there was this recipe, a Middle Eastern recipe. That's basically a meat pie. And there was discussion on the episode that we watched where she made this about how to say it. And I'm just going to say the crappy Americanized version of this name, but it's fatayr, something like that. Anyway, delicious, especially if you add some sauces to it. It was really good. So yeah, good stuff. Like I said, I not only ate some wonderful food, but we had, my daughter has good taste in beer and cocktails. So we drank a little bit too. And speaking of drinking, oh boy, her husband gets into a lot of different things. He has a lot of different interests, and he's kind of like me in relation to comic books, but with other stuff. And he's like he's hardcore into this stuff. And he recently got into espresso, and had a few weeks before I arrived had bought this espresso machine. And I found out later that he really wanted to be able to make me, because they know I like mochas. That's kind of my coffee of choice whenever I go to Starbucks or other places. Really wanted to be able to make me a really good mocha. And so he made me an espresso. I think it was the Saturday morning, the first full day that I was there. He made me an espresso, and it was the best cup of coffee I have ever had. And I love having those espressos so much. I had decided that I was going to buy an espresso machine for myself at home. And in fact, so I would go and when I would go to bed, I'd get on my iPad and I'd look up, okay, well, what's a good cheap espresso? Because I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on an espresso machine. And it turns out that the model that he bought was the one I was going to get. So it was kind of serendipitous that way. However, I did not end up buying that. I was actually going to buy it the second week that I was there and have it shipped to my house and be here when I got back. But he ended up buying another espresso machine and then just giving me his old one, which I thought was really nice. So yeah, I came home and immediately, after I brought all my stuff in and said hello to my lovely wife and adoring other kids that live with us, my other grandkids, and of course my dog, who was going frickin' nuts, not having seen me for a month. Actually, I was kind of concerned that he was going to forget me, but no, he was very happy to see me, and that also filled my heart with joy. So that was the other thing. Just to go back to the quarantine. Had I been able to, if I thought about it, I would have brought my dog. We should have rented a place that allowed pets, because that would have made things a little easier on my psyche. So, like I said, after saying hello to everybody and talking with them a bit, and I started putting things away, I immediately got that evening. I got out the espresso machine, and then the next day made some coffee. And I've been enjoying it ever since. I did not have, I have some coffee because I make coffee most mornings and take it with me to work. But I have a particular kind of coffee that I like. It's a light roast. Kona blend is what they call it. And, that's what I have. But I found out that does not match the espresso that, my son-in-law was making me. So, right before I started recording today, I had gone grocery shopping and bought some an espresso blend, some beans for that. So now I think after I get done recording, I'm going to go make myself another espresso and be wired the rest of the day. But we'll see how it goes. So yeah, I like I said, I had the best time with my daughter and her family for those 2 weeks. And this week, as I've been home, been just back to work, and just kind of hanging out. I haven't really done a whole lot in the evenings. It's funny because when I was with my daughter, we would stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was tired, but I didn't feel exhausted. But as soon as I got back home, it was I was just really tired all the time. And going to bed, I had to go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night because I was so tired. So I don't know what the deal is, what the difference was, other than, just enjoying talking with my daughter, I guess. But yeah, I haven't been exercising this week. I've been going to bed because I'm so tired. But yeah. It is what it is. While I was there, though, those 2 weeks, for that month that I was down in the Boise area, I did occupy my time with watching a little bit of television those first 2 weeks that I was by myself. And I discovered that on one of the channels, one of the over-the-air channels, they would air episodes of Magnum P.I. during lunchtime. So I watched a few of those as I ate my lunch. And I don't know how much I've talked about Magnum, but that's one of my very favorite shows of all time. So it was nice to watch those. One late night on the same channel, I believe, I discovered that they had Kolchak, the Night Stalker series. And so I watched the first full episode of that show ever for me. And I need to find more of those because it's interesting. Darren McGavin did an interesting character. So I'm curious how the rest of the series is. Also, there was one night where I logged into Netflix and watched some Star Trek. I watched The Empath for the first time in a very long time, years and years. And so that was interesting to revisit that old episode after all this time. And so here's a question for you all. Is it unethical? Is it wrong to use someone else's Netflix login? Because when I went to use the TV that was there at the Airbnb house, people had logged into their Netflix account and did not log back out. So I just use theirs. Does that make me a bad person? It's funny because the house instructions do say, feel free to log into your Netflix account, but remember to log out. And obviously the 4 or 5 people that had stayed there before me did not do that. So I just used it. I also wanted to watch, or I guess I came across, I don't remember now, or maybe I've been wanting to watch this again. But I watched this again. Molly's Game, the movie with Jessica Chastain, that was directed by, forgotten his name, the guy that created The West Wing, and which is wonderful. It's a great movie. Boy, I really recommend you watch that. But I had been thinking about this before. And hadn't pulled the trigger, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to order this. And so I ordered the Blu-ray of Molly's Game and had it sent to my house. And then it come to find out that when I opened it, when I got home, 3 or 4 weeks later, that the Blu-ray in the container was not in there, the DVD, because I could only get the Blu-ray DVD digital download version, but the DVD disc was in there, but not the Blu-ray disc. So I had to contact Walmart because that's where I bought it from. I also bought at the same time, I don't want to just spend $5 on this on this purchase. I also bought the DVD box set of Star Trek Voyager. So I could have it, because I'm only slightly concerned that eventually Paramount Plus will, once the licenses for their Star Trek shows, when those lapse at these other places like Netflix, that you will only be able to access them on Paramount Plus eventually. If they were smart, they would do that. So I wanted to ensure that I had access to Voyager, because for the Center Seat podcast that I'm doing, I want to be able to watch those episodes whenever I want and not be beholden to a corporation holding me hostage because I'm not subscribing to their service. But eventually I'm sure I will, because I want to watch all those other Star Trek shows they have on there. So we'll see. Okay, so that was the 2 weeks that I was quarantining. But then when I was with my daughter, we started watching these shows, a couple shows, and a couple movies. Oh, wait, no. Yeah. Oh, right. Because I'm talking about TV right now. Just TV stuff, and then I'll skip to the movies. Although I talked about a movie. Oh, well, I'm all over the place here. Not my usual organized self. Okay, so while I was at my daughter's house, we also watched a couple movies. Since I just talked about Molly's game, we watched Stupid Crazy Love, which is a Steve Carell movie with Emma Stone, and I love Emma Stone, but I'd never seen the movie. Probably because it's a Steve Carell movie. I'm not a big fan of his, but my daughter was like, "You were stupid for not watching this movie." So we watched it, and it was very entertaining. So I quite loved it. It had a great message about relationships. And so, yeah, if you haven't watched it, I recommend it. We also watched a documentary on, it's called Seaspiracy. This was on Netflix, I believe. Anyway, that made me rethink my purchase and consumption of seafood, especially tuna. That was difficult. That was a difficult thing to watch, especially because we had planned to have these fish sandwiches. They were going to make some fish sandwiches that they've made before. That was on the menu that night. We watched that. We had a lengthy conversation about whether or not we wanted to change the menu, but pragmatism won out over our ethical quandary. So we didn't want to waste food. So, but that was really interesting. I read some criticism of the documentary about how the documentarian kind of cherry picked some stuff, and maybe also didn't show everything that he could have. But anyway, it's still a very pertinent situation in regards to the seafood industry and whaling and all that kind of stuff relating to it. I had no idea all the stuff that's going on there, and boy, yeah, like I said, it really makes me think about purchasing seafood, mass-produced seafood in stores now. So apparently now I need to go watch Cowspiracy, which was the documentary the guy did before this. Or maybe I did. Maybe I shouldn't. Ignorance is bliss, they say. But that's beside the point. So yeah, interesting things that we watched. Going back to television, while I was there, we watched the show on Netflix Down to Earth with Zac Efron. My daughter thought that I would enjoy it because it was Zac Efron. I'd heard of it, and because Zac Efron was there, I was like, eh. But we ended up watching it. I'm like, wow, this is really, again, it was entertaining, but mostly informative about various subjects, water included. If you're at all conscious about our place and stewardship of the earth, this is definitely a series to watch. I told my wife when I got back home and we're able to, I want my family to watch this show as well. and to see what they get out of it. And then we also got into Q, Into the Storm, this another documentary. We watched 2 or 3 episodes as they were released. And I need to get back to that because they've released at least another one, if not 2 episodes. That's interesting because this is about the QAnon conspiracy and who is QAnon and the impact that Q has had on the election and other things. So yeah, really interesting stuff. And since I'm all over the place, I'll go back to some stuff that I had watched. Oh, I forgot one other thing that I watched while I was quarantining, but I'll do that first, and then I'll get to the stuff that I watched before I left my home to do all this stuff. While I was quarantining, I had brought a couple movies with me, which I now realize I don't know where they are. God, I hope I packed those. Oh God, I hope I didn't leave them there. Anyway, I only ended up watching one of those, and this was the Michael Caine movie, The Ipcress File. Now, this is a spy movie that I had heard about years and years ago and added it to my Netflix list back when Netflix was just a DVD service. And I added it to my list to be sent to me, but they never could send it because they didn't have the disc. It was listed, but they didn't have the disc. And then I'm like, well, screw this. I'll just buy it. And then I find out, oh, it's out of print. I can't. And it's not streaming anywhere. It's like, ah, damn it. I really want to watch this movie. And then I found out I think it was on the 430 movie podcast, they were talking about this, that in late 2020, this other company was reissuing the DVD. And so I ordered it and bought it and watched it. And it was interesting because I quite enjoy watching material that is set in the 60s, and this was at the time contemporaneously in the 60s. And so you get to see this young Michael Caine being this kind of low-level analyst type person, but he gets gets even further into stuff. He's not just an analyst. Stuff happens with him. It kind of veers off into this weird mind control thing, which I didn't care for all that much, but it was still an interesting movie. So if you're a Michael Caine fan, I recommend see if you can access that, the movie, The Ipcress File. Okay, finally, a couple things. My teenage granddaughters, Madison and Gabby, I talk about them all the time here. We started watching WandaVision before I left, and I got to the point to the next to last episode, and then I went for my trip. And so I still have not watched the WandaVision finale, but hopefully we will do that soon, because that was a lot of fun. Speaking of 60s stuff, the show started off. If you haven't watched it, it's about the Scarlet Witch, although she's not really named that, from the Avengers movies, and Vision from the Avengers movies, played by the same actors who played them in the movies. And so they have this little short television program where they are together and living a domestic life together, but they inhabit the world of television sitcoms. And so the first couple episodes, at least, if not part of the third, they're filmed in black and white, much like the Dick Van Dyke Show, or other shows like that at the time. And then we get 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and I think 90s sitcom not sitcom but sitcom done in the style of those sitcoms of those decades. And then also there is this other shared universe plot that's going on that's tied to the movies as well. It was quite the delight. I actually don't watch a lot of the superhero television that we have available, but this one was really good. And so I've had to hold off listening to a few podcasts that I normally listen to because they're talking about that final episode. So eventually I'll get to the Comic Geek Speak and Meanwhile the podcast reviews of that final episode. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then my wife and I started watching this show on not Showtime. Oh boy, I forget now what the streaming service is. Doesn't really matter, but it's the one with Outlander, whichever one that is. Anyway, so the star of the male lead of that show, and I've forgotten his name, is one of the hosts of the show called Men in Kilts, and he and one of his co-stars, I believe he plays the guy's uncle in the show. They got together and they're traveling around this van around Scotland, and they're visiting various places, experiencing the food, the people, and other things relating to Scotland. And considering that my wife and I went to Edinburgh a few years ago, we have this fascination and love for Scotland. And so, of course, we had to, and my wife loves Outlander, and the guy that plays that character, I think his name is Jamie in the show. Anyway, so she definitely wanted to watch that. I'm like, well, it's a travelogue about Scotland, so of course I want to watch it with you. So we were watching that. I think we are behind a few episodes because I was away. My wife very, very nicely said that she would not watch it without me. So anyway, very much looking forward to getting back to that. And then finally, as far as TV movies go, this is the last thing that I'll talk about. I watched with Gabby and Maddie several weeks ago. I had gotten this for Christmas or my birthday, I forget. But it's the Batman Death in the Family movie. It's the interactive movie. So it's a kind of a choose your own adventure type thing where you're watching this movie go along, and then we get to this point where they offer you a couple choices, and then you use the remote to choose the choices, your choice, right? And then the movie progresses from there. And so we ended up going through all the choices, every choice that's available. And I quite honestly, I wish they had given us more choices throughout the storyline, but whatever. It was still fun, and it took us a good 2 hours to do it. This is Batman: Death in the Family. It's really about Jason Todd and his encounter with the Joker, and this is going back to when DC Comics gave us the opportunity to vote through this 1-900 number back in 80-something, I think, to whether or not Jason Todd survives the Joker's assault on him with that crowbar. So, I think most people in the comic book reading community know exactly what I'm talking about, but just in case you don't read comics, but you do listen to this podcast, that's what it's about. And it was very interesting that the choices they made as filmmakers and storytellers as far as how these different choices would play out. Definitely different from the comics. I will say, though, that sometimes the movie relied too heavily on exposition and voiceover to explain the plot progression instead of actually just showing it to us. But, it was still a lot of fun. I would like to revisit this at some point down the road, but I don't. Given that we went through all the possibilities the same day, I probably won't do that anytime soon. Okay, finally, just for some stuff, podcast related stuff. I just wanted to mention some podcasts that I listened to or will be listening to. That they reached a milestone. For example, my buddy George from Meanwhile the Podcast and his two co-hosts, they recently reached, at the time of this recording anyway, episode 100. To me that's an impressive feat because I've been podcasting now for 10 years and I'm not even up to episode 200 in the main feed. I think I have over 200 episodes total for all the various shows I have, but the main comic book related podcast, I haven't reached 200 yet, and they've reached 100, doing a show every week since they launched. And so I'm amazed that Rodney, Kristen, and George and their guests have been releasing weekly episodes for 100, up to 100, now over 100 episodes. I think I just downloaded episode 102 this weekend. So congratulations to Rodney, Kristen, and George, and their guests. And of course, I've joined George on the show once or twice, maybe more. I can't remember. I think I'm getting the times that I was on his previous podcast confused. But anyway, should go check out Meanwhile the podcast and their episode 100 in particular. Half of that, number-wise, the DC OCD podcast recently hit episode 50, which is a bit of a milestone, where they talked about the controversial Heroes in Crisis event. So what's really cool about DC OCD, I don't know if I've talked about this show before, but they talk about the DC events starting from Crisis on Infinite Earths up to now for episode 50, Heroes in Crisis. So they've been doing this. It's a lot of fun. On the episode, in particular, episode 50, Peter Rios, my Legion Project podcast co-host, and Sean from the Bat Pod and the Pulp to Pixel Network shows were on the show as well with the host, and that was an interesting discussion, I will say, for sure. Unfortunately, it was announced that there won't be any really new episodes for a while, which is really a bummer. But it makes sense because they're talking about these events, and the host doesn't want to. He wants some time to pass for these later events, after Heroes in Crisis, so that they can basically evaluate the impact and the legacy of those particular events to the larger DC universe. So I think that's very smart. Unfortunately, it just means I won't hear them talking about DC comics or DC event comics for a while. So unfortunately, but anyway, if you've not heard about the show, you're a fan of DC events, definitely go back to the beginning and listen to the show. I mentioned Peter, his Daily Rios at the time of this recording is very close to reaching episode 500. I think he's like 497, 498, so very close. So I cannot wait to see what Peter has in mind for an episode 500 celebration. So definitely check that out if you have not been. I may be involved in episode 500. We'll see. Speaking of Peter, this is not a milestone, but I just want to mention that he and Murd recently released a new Crisis Tapes episode on the Comic Geek Speak feed covering the first part of issue 6. And if you are a comic book lover of history and a Crisis kid, perhaps, the Crisis Tapes is the podcast for you. And the encyclopedic knowledge between these two gentlemen is astounding. And so whenever they release an episode and they're, they release them when they can record and get together and record and get those out. So they're few and far between sometimes, but man, when there's an episode, it's like coming home. So I highly recommend that show if you're, like I said, if you're a fan of the Crisis, the original Crisis. And then finally, the podcast Serial that made huge waves several years ago. They had three series? Definitely 2. I think they had a third. Anyway, they're coming back with a new show as well, which finally. Very much looking forward to that. And the show that they're doing is called The Improvement Association. And honestly, I listened to the trailer for the new show, but I don't remember now what that show is about. So it'll be a journey of discovery for me too. So just want to make sure that is on your radar if you were a fan of Serial and you thought it pod faded. It has not, thankfully. So that's it as far as what I've been up to for about the last month. Also, I at the time of this recording, I will be getting my first vaccine shot next week. I'm very much looking forward to that. And then I'll follow up, of course, 3 weeks later and get my vaccine. However, I'm not going to, and this is, I guess, the preachy part of the podcast. I do not plan to stop wearing masks in public and still maintaining distance, still washing my hands, and not engaging in various gatherings where there's lots of people. So please do the same. Get your vaccinations, and we need to wipe out this gosh darn virus, or at least contain it enough to where it's not something that will prevent us from in the future getting together and enjoying each other's company again. So I don't plan on. I talked to someone last week where they were planning on going to Rose City Comic Con, and I told them I would love to go, but man, I do not think I will be going to anything like that until maybe next year, which still hurts. I miss going to cons. I know my granddaughter Madison, well, both of them really, but they really want to go again. We wanted to go back to Seattle. We hadn't been there in a few years. I want to go to Heroes Con again, and I would love to go to other cons as well around the country. So it is what it is. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's important that we all do our part, and that is the. Like I said, that's the end of my preachy part of my podcast. So anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy these little rants of mine that I have about my life. If you have any feedback for me, anything you would like for me to talk about that I don't talk about or haven't talked about, let me know. If you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer those on the air, so to speak. So, and you could do that. You can send those queries and questions to me by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can leave comments at longboxreview.com, or even, just chat me up on Twitter at, again, longboxreview. And with that, I leave you. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.